City Council can order at 4:02 p.m. Clerk will call the roll.
Mr. Sinapi?
Here.
Mr. DeLuise? Here. Mr. Foley?
Here.
Mr. Gephardt? Mr. Kirby? Mr. Kirby?
Here.
Mr. Lattiser?
Here.
Mr. Muno?
Here.
Mr. Napa? Mr. Rick?
Here.
8 present.
Councilman Ricks, you want to lead us in the salute to the flag?
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave?
First up is general communications, announcements of congratulations, condolences, or community events. Councilman Lattiser.
Thank you, Mr. President. I would like to offer a moment of silence for our former colleague, Councilman John Del Judas, who passed away a little over a week ago. John had served on the city council for over 8 years, and his last term, he had somehow convinced me to run and take his place. John was a strong advocate for his constituents and had done a great job. It's unfortunate that one of his wishes was to see Del Judas Park refurbished, and unfortunately, he's not going to quite make the total completion. But John did a great job. He was very dedicated to the city and his constituents. He was also the vice chair of the Board of Canvassers here in Warwick. So if we could have a moment of silence. Thank you.
Please have a moment of silence for Mr. Del Judas. Anything else for general communications? Seeing none, we move on to executive communications. There are none. Next, we move on to public comment. Rule 41. After general communications and prior to the consent calendar at the last regularly scheduled meeting of the City Council each month, there shall be a period of time not to exceed 30 minutes, during which citizens may comment about Warwick city government issues subject to the following stipulations. The total period of time for public comment shall not exceed 30 minutes. Comments need to be brief in order to allow as many citizens as possible to participate. Each citizen signed up and present shall have not to exceed 5 minutes to speak. Provided, however, that if more than 6 citizens are signed up and present, the 30 minutes will be split evenly amongst the speakers. Time shall not be transferable among speakers. The topics for comment shall be issues directly affecting city government. City council members will not respond to questions during the public comment period. The public comment session will terminate at the expiration of the earlier of all speakers concluding their allotted time, or 30 minutes. Waiver of this provision requires a unanimous vote of the council. Do we have anyone signed up to speak? Oh, all right. Next time, just make me get it. I don't mind. I didn't realize. First up, we have Rob Cody. And I know I already said your name, but please, when you get to the mic, just identify yourself.
Just going to set my timer. Give me a second, please. Rob Cody, Ward 7. Well, it's no surprise that I'm here to say I'm disgusted with the way the city runs its finances. It's deplorable. I've been saying it for a long time. There is no fiscal management in this city, and ultimately we're going down the road of insolvency, but we're going a lot faster than anybody ever thought. This budget has gone up $60 million in the last 5 years. That's unsustainable. Combined with the schools, combined with all the giveaways, the raises, it makes no sense to me. A few weeks ago, we had an emergency meeting because the school committee produces a $9 million deficit. Where's the superintendent that was in charge? Never been called to face the music. See you later, bye, retiring, ran it into the ground, now I'm retiring. Nobody does anything. 5 days after that meeting, this administration and this council gave away 14% raises. In the private sector, that behavior would result in termination, if not prosecution. But what do we do in this city? We ignore it. The school department's a mess. The city's a mess financially. The health system is a mess. The roads are a mess. I don't think we can point to anything that's doing the right thing. In 2000 or 2001, the Barton-Gilman report in the school department determined that the school department, quote unquote, was a fiscal train wreck. The union came and said they don't know what they're talking about. What happens? $9 million deficit. Person running the show doesn't even get to have a question asked to her. Water department. What do we have? Lawsuits from the water department because of the way the employees act. What are we doing? You guys seen me come before you how many times? Have you seen the videos that I show our city workers knowingly and willfully screwing off, hiding out, not performing any work? That's called theft, and they should be fired immediately. What happens? Nothing. We don't do anything. Yesterday, I see a water department worker driving all around the city, goes out behind the old Ann and Hope, parks his truck between the U-Haul cars and hangs out, does nothing. What happened? Nothing. This morning, 10 o'clock, engine 6, engine 2, 6 guys in Days Market. Engines left unattended and running. 6 guys. They weren't on a run. Let me familiarize you, for those of you that don't have any clue what the DPW contract states in Section 6, that they shall have an employee productivity and efficiency program to monitor the productivity of the employees. It's been in there for 8 years. Hasn't been implemented. You got a contract that no one's following, and these employees are laughing at the administration. I get calls from good, hardworking employees all the time. They tell me where people are hiding out. They're laughing at this administration because they take no steps to admonish anybody that's screwing the taxpayer. And what's the end result? Raise the taxes. These are the priorities. Suck up to the unions, don't do anything, raise the taxes. Monday, I was approached by a police officer who tells me I cannot use a bullhorn in public. And when directly behind him was the head of the teachers union with a bullhorn. This is another lawsuit that I'll be lodging against the city for violation of my First Amendment. What are we doing? The city's out of control. The budget's out of control. The spending is out of control. And we're going down the road that we're not going to be able to recover from. And quite frankly, I'm tired of coming here. This city's finances, what the administration should do is in the summertime, drive through the streets, find some of these little third graders that have a lemonade stand and sit with them and let them teach you how to run finances, because that's the way the city runs. $350 million school project. Not enough. I told you that 3 years ago. Now we need another $50 million. The interest on the bond, if it's perfect, goes the right way, 13.5 million. 8.6 is what we can raise with a maximum tax increase. Where's the money going to go? Nobody knows. We spend millions designing tollgate. Then afterwards, we do a core sample to find out there's ledge. It's tiresome coming here. This is not a professional place. The people that are running this city have their own problems financially, personally, and it's now coming down to the residents, and the city's going down the tubes, and we're not doing anything about it. Thank you.
Next up is Bob Cushman.
Good evening. Robert Cushman, Ward 1, former Warwick City Councilman, maybe future City Councilman, we'll see. I sent out an email to every member of the council depicting some spending trends in the city and the budget. Hopefully you received that and you took a look at it. One of the things I've always said about the city council and even the mayor, the way we run the budget, we don't do it the right way. We look at past spending, we look at the current fiscal year, then we look at the next year. We never look at any trends. So what I thought I would do, and I didn't send this to the administration, I should have. I looked at spending in 5-year increments over the last 20 years. I've been keeping track of the budget now for 22 years. From 2007 to 2011, $23.8 million increase in spending. That's city and schools. 2012 to 2016, $23.8 million for city and schools. 2017 to 2021, $23.6 million. Pretty consistent spending in those 15-year period of time. I bet you if I asked anybody, what's the spending between 2022 and including this proposed 2026 budget, hardly anybody in this council chambers would probably know. Well, here's the answer. $60.4 million. Let me repeat that again. $60.4 million in the last 5 years, when we've never gone over in any 5-year period for the last 20 years, $24 million. You don't think that's a problem? Plus, that $60 million includes no new money for the $9 million plus deficit in the school department budget. We could be looking at potentially a supplemental tax increase maybe in the fall when the General Assembly gets back into session to figure out what that problem is. We're tapping the surplus for $3.8 million. I've seen people online talk about, the analysis that I do, and they're saying, well, that $60.4 million covers all the new school borrowing. No, it doesn't. It's $4 million. It's 6.6% of that $60 million. We heard today, I listened a couple of days ago, that there's another $10, $11 million in future borrowing for the high schools that's going to come in. That's probably going to result, could be in a supplemental tax increase. So the issues that we have here is our spending is out of control. By the time we get done borrowing money, and I heard that the school department, they haven't broken ground now because they're finding contaminants in the soil. How much more millions is that going to be? We're going to put a $50 million bond, which is going to total $400 million in borrowing. The administration said there's other borrowing that's taking place for elementary schools that hasn't been realized yet. We're going to be at $1.3 billion in unfunded liabilities and debt in this city. $1.3 billion. We are going to be $200 million over our borrowing state limit set by law. And then we hear about future borrowing for building maybe elementary schools and things like that. This city, I can guarantee you right now, its credit rating is going to be reduced. We've already heard about this as a result of the overspending by the school department, that our credit rating will probably be, I can guarantee it's going to be reduced. And then what do we have with the school department? The nerve of people to come into this council chamber, the school committee, the former superintendent who's never been held accountable to anything, to ask for more money. That is outrageous. I'm talking to a person that I live in Ward 1. He's 79 years old. He's selling his home. 1 minute, I know. He has
1 minute, Mr. Cushman.
He has to sell his home because he can't afford the tax increases. Nobody cares about the senior citizens. If you did, you would have been talking about senior tax relief years ago before you started building these schools. The 4 members of the school committee should resign in disgrace because they've seen what was going to happen with this and they've done nothing to correct the situation. So I just hope you start looking at the trends. $60.4 million in increased spending over the last 5 years. It's 255% of any other point in time in the history of the city. This city is in for a reckoning. I hope to lead the charge for angry taxpayers when they come in and start getting their tax bills, and maybe we'll get some people who are elected into office who want to look at and tackle this problem.
Next, we have Jim Ginolfi.
Good evening, Mr. Council President, members of the council, the mayor, and other city officials. It's
I
been
know
promised.
can you just say your name for the record? I apologize.
What's that?
Can you just say your name?
Oh, Jim Ginolfi.
Thank you. Sorry.
No, it's all right. It is promising to hear that there are those on both sides of the city and the school side that are cooperating and working together. I would hope that the parties continue to work together and establish a true and lasting relationship for the future. As the acting superintendent, Mr. McCaffrey, so eloquently said, we are one city. On Monday, the mayor provided an additional $1.7+ million in city revenue for our schools over the budgeted $400,000+. I thank you for that. I would hope that over the last couple of days since Monday, the mayor and the city council might have reached an agreement on providing some additional funding to close the gap that exists between what the budget was adopted by the school committee and what is on the table now. With that said, let it be clear, there's only one issue before you tonight, none of these other issues. The issue before you tonight is what will be the dollar amount of local city revenue that this city council will approve in order that our schools have the necessary funds in their school's operating budget, the operating budget, to provide our students with a sound education. So you must ask yourselves, what is the fair share of local revenue that our schools should receive? And in order to ensure that both the city side and the school side receive their fair share of local city revenue, we must debunk the myths that some individuals spread. One must look at the total local revenue that the city raises in order to answer the question of what is the fair share for the schools. The biggest half-truth is that of the property tax. It's true that 58+% of the property tax goes to the school side and 41+ of the property tax goes to the city side. The schools receive $143+ million of that amount, and the city receives $101+ million of that amount. But as Paul Harvey says, for those who are old enough, or maybe those who are young enough to know who he was, and now for the rest of the story. The property tax is only one component of the local revenue. It's not the only source. The city raises approximately 45 or 46 million plus in local revenue from other sources, all of which goes to the city side of the budget. So the property is 60-40, the rest is 100-0. Think about that. Is that a fair share? And you're going to say, well, the city's providing principal and interest on the debt. Take that number out. Here's some statistics. Of the 290+ million of the city budget, 146 plus million, or approximately 50.5% of the local revenue that the city raises go to the city. Of that amount, 49.5% goes to the school side. What's the fair share? when the principal and interest on both the city and school bonds are excluded, the city receives 47.5% of the local revenue, and the school side receives 52.5%.
You have 1 minute, Mr. Ginolfi.
Thank you. A vast difference from what the property tax is. That needs to be changed, because all you hear from the critics, who for whatever their reason and motivation, make false and misleading statements such as, the schools are responsible for the city's financial burdens. The schools receive the lion's share of the city revenue. It's the schools' problems why we're raising the property taxes. That's false. But I would hope that you consider what's the fair share of the city. Thank you very much.
Darlene Netco.
Hello, Darlene Netco, Ward 7, President of the Warwick Teachers Union. I want to just repeat one thing Mr. Ginolfi said, which was that it was heartening to hear the other night Mr. Sinapi acknowledging that the schools and the city are working better together. And the fact that the mayor was able to find some more money in the budget to give to the schools. The other night, I had a whole list of items that I brought up to you. I just wanted to summarize today, just to remind everybody that for a number of years, the schools and the city weren't working so well together. Whosever fault that was, we won't go into, but they weren't. And to that end, when it was allowed back in around the Great Recession time, that the schools were able to be underfunded up to 5% below the maintenance of effort, Warwick was the only city or town that took the full 5% and never gave it back. Furthermore, Warwick became the only city or town to make the schools pay the interest on the bond from 2006. It was a previous mayor and a previous school committee chair. In order to release the bond money, the chair agreed to pay the debt service on the bond. So therefore, for probably about 10 years worth of time, the schools had to, before they did anything else, put $1.5 million into their budget to pay that interest. Couple that with the money they never got back, schools operating under a deficit. 2016, schools were closed, consolidated, 72 layoffs, 65 layoffs. 2018, more schools consolidated, closed. There are houses going up now where some of those elementary schools sat. Those students, those children in those houses are going to have to go to school. We hear nothing about why schools are so important. We hear why schools are terrible and draining the economy and ruining the city. The schools are the future. The kids need to be educated. I know some people would like to put 500 kids in an auditorium and one teacher on the stage and call that an education. That's not an education. We have lost faculty over the years. We have downsized we've lost classroom teachers. And as I pointed out the other night, at the same time, though, we've gained support personnel. We have more special ed teachers. We have more social workers. We have more nurses. There was a time when one nurse took care of multiple schools. We have one nurse in each school, and that's the way it should be given the needs of the children that are in the schools. We used to have one social worker that did a high school, a junior high, and all the elementary feeder schools. We have 2 social workers now in 3 of the secondary schools, 1 social worker in the other, and then multiple social workers for the elementary schools. We have multiple psychologists now. We have OTs, PTs, speech, and we have these because the children that we have in the schools need them. Their IEPs dictate that they have them. I know I hear a lot of talk of you can cut 100 more teachers. You cannot. We already have overages in classrooms, and the students need the other services that the other professions provide. And if you are going to properly educate the kids, which I hope you would want to do, then you need to have the personnel to do it. And that also includes teaching assistants.
You have 1 minute, Ms. Netco.
Thanks. That also includes teaching assistants and clerks and custodians, all of whom are being cut along with teachers in this budget. So while I know some people would love to just decimate the school department and chastise it for mistakes of the past and berate it and beat it into the ground, I have spent 35 years in this school system, and just probably about everybody in this room, or many people in this room, graduated from this school system. And if we want Warwick to be a great city, as it can be and as it is, I said on Monday, I appreciate our police service. I appreciate our fire service. I appreciate our DPW. If you want to pay fewer taxes, my sister lives in Charlestown. Their taxes are low. They have to pay for their garbage removal. They have a volunteer fire department. We have a good city here. We can have a great city. We're one city. That's the schools and the city
Time,
side.
Ms.
Thank you.
That concludes Rule 41. Next, we're on to PCR 65-25 relative to transfers, supplemental appropriations, and emergency appropriations. Let's go to Councilman Lattiser for a recommendation.
Move favorable action on PCR 65-25.
Motion made for favorable action. Is there a second? Seconded by Councilman Napa. All right. So first things first, are we going to do the omnibus? No, shaking head, no. Brownie face. Got it. Any questions regarding any transfers, supplemental appropriations, and emergency appropriations? All right, it's moved and seconded, so clerk will call the roll.
Mr. Sinapi?
Yes.
Mr. DeLuise?
Yes.
Mr. Foley?
Yes.
Mr. Gephardt?
Yes.
Mr. Curry?
Yes.
Mr. Lattiser?
Yes.
Mr. Muto?
Yes.
Mr. Napa?
Yes.
Mr. Ricks?
Yes.
9 yes, motion passes.
So next is PCR 66-25, resolution adopting the budget and estimating the tax rates of the city of Warwick for the fiscal year beginning July 1st, 2025 and ending June 30th, 2026, inclusive of FY26 general funds, FY26 personnel funds, FY26 special and capital funds budgets. This is Councilman Lattiser.
Move favorable action on PCR 66-25.
Motion for favorable action. Is there a second? Seconded by Councilman Muto. So first things first, we need someone to move, and then we need a second regarding the omnibus corrections from the mayor's office for various line items in the budget.
So moved.
So moved by Councilman Napa.
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Lattiser. All right. Solicitor?
Councilman Napa moves and is seconded by Councilman Lattiser, an amendment at the request of the administration to make corrective matters identified during and resulting from conversations in the public hearing. This is a lengthy series of numbers, so bear with me. I'm going to read them in order as follows. It will be a department number, the line item description, the number that was originally proposed, the change that is requested, and the total impact of what that would have. In this, there are a series of these, so please bear with me. And they are in order of department for those flipping through the book. The first piece of the amendment is Department 30-105. This is police salaries crossing guards. The original amount was $130,000. The amendment seeks to reduce it by $6,000, resulting in it being $124,000. The second piece of the amendment is regarding Department 30-271. This is police communications / radios. The original request is $180,000. The amendment is to increase this by $6,000, resulting in a total of $186,000. The next piece of the amendment is Department 35-105, Fire-Salaries Fire 2. The original proposal was $4,431,288, and it is seeking to reduce that amount by $125,768, resulting in a new total of $4,305,000 and $4,305,520. 4305,520. The next piece of the amendment is Department 35-310, Fire-Rent. There was no original proposal. It is seeking to be increased by $125,768, resulting in the same amount. The next piece is 35-799, Fire Miscellaneous Capital Expenditures. The original proposal was $1,875,000. There is a request to reduce this by $1,550,000, resulting in a new total of $325,000. Department 44-101, Apponaug Rank Salaries Municipal. The original proposal was $263,246. The amendment is to reduce this by $75,000 for a new total of $188,246. The next piece is regarding Department 63-101, Public Works Highway Salaries Municipal. The original amount of $3,555,205 is being reduced by $235,140 for a new total of $3,320,065. Department 63-380, Public Works Highway General Services, original amount $850. Amendment is to increase it by $90,000 for a new total of $90,850. Department 70-224, Public Works Field Maintenance Propane Gas. The original amount of $10,000 is seeking to be reduced by $7,500 for a new total of $2,500. 70-304, Public Works Field Maintenance Natural Gas, original amount of $20,000 to be reduced by $7,500 for a new total of $12,500. And the last piece is regarding Department 89000. This is the school department appropriation. The original amount was $194,442,909. And the amendment would increase this by $1,785,140 for a new total of $196,228,049. That is the administration amendment that's been moved and seconded, Council President.
All right, so the goal here is, even if you don't necessarily agree with where the money is being changed, if we could please get this passed, so that way we're all operating off of the same numbers. So that way, if you want to move the funds from elsewhere or go different spots, we can. There's nothing stopping you. So if you don't like, say, for instance, where the money's going for police, for fire, or for schools, after the amendment, you could say, well, I want to propose to move that money that we just moved from that one to the other one. But it makes it simpler. We've done it a different way before, and it makes it very cumbersome and very difficult to keep track of everything. So that's my preference for how far we proceed, and I'm being signaled. Chief?
Yeah, good evening. Bill Pacenti, Chief of Staff to Mayor Picozzi. I apologize. While the line item number and the department is correct in the title, the dollar amount on 35-105, Fire Salaries, Fire 2, the proposed and final numbers, I actually was taking that from the overtime line. So the actual proposed in the 2026 budget is $19,723,576 $723,598.73. The dollar amount of the reduction is the same, $125,768. And I believe the final, 98.
Chief, if I'm hearing you correctly, the transmittal just had the wrong baseline amount in it. but
Correct.
The requested transfer is the same?
The requested transfer is the same.
Okay, so to correct the amendment that was read, this is just a clerical matter. So 35, and I have my book in front of me. For those of you, it's on page 22. 35105 salaries dash fire 2. The number that was read into the record was incorrect. That was the 4.4 million or so dollars. It is actually 19,723,598.73. That would be reduced by the same $125,768. If there's no objection, Mr. President, the amendment could be.
Is there any objection to that clerical correction? All right, seeing none, so now we have the full omnibus amendment proposed. Does anyone have any questions on the omnibus amendment proposed by the mayor? All right, seeing none, clerk will call the roll.
Mr. Sinapi?
Yes.
Mr. DeLuise?
Yes.
Mr. Foley?
Yes.
Mr. Gephardt? Mr. Kirby?
Yes.
Mr. Lattiser?
Yes.
Mr. Muto?
Yes.
Mr. Napa?
Yes.
Mr. Ricks?
Yes.
9 yes, as amended.
All right, so now we have before us the budget as amended. So now, people likely have requests, potential changes, comments, concerns. Councilman Ricks.
Thank you. Is this an appropriate time to move an amendment?
Absolutely.
Thank you. So, pardon me, I'll just make sure to have this.
Is it one you already provided to the solicitor?
It is. It is. So, this amendment, I move to transfer $45,000 from the Board of Canvassers line item 17-495 to Police Department line item 30-140 night program, which would bring line item 30-140 to $90,000 and bring line item 17-495 to $10,000. If one of my colleagues may second.
Seconded by Councilman Lattiser. So for discussion, Councilman Ricks.
Thank you. So, especially in a year where we are looking at what's proposed as a very hefty tax increase, I think that it's important to try to avoid reducing services that provide particular value to constituents. I don't know about every other ward here in the city. Obviously, each of you was elected for your own wards to provide constituents, make sure that the constituents are receiving the services that they're requesting, advocating for constituents. Speaking strictly as the councilman from Ward 2, one of the issues that I hear the most about is safety and traffic enforcement. It's most definitely a top 10 issue, probably a top 5 issue most years. One of the most effective tools that we have to address this constituent concern is the night program, a list that we each provide to the police department for that additional overtime so that we have some police officers out there enforcing those stop signs and speed limits. And that really is the most effective tool in order to change the behavior of drivers on the road, especially in those problematic areas. Drivers who get in the wrong habits, when they start to notice that police officers are there a little bit more often, different times of day, can't necessarily predict it. drivers start to get a little bit more conscientious about how they're driving through our neighborhoods. This amount of the $45,000 effectively represents, if my math is correct, approximately 2/100ths of 1% of the total budget. I think that in a year such as this, even in a year such as this, we can spare that amount in order to make sure that this level of constituent services is funded at the same level as we had budgeted for last year. I understand, of course, that for many years it had been budgeted at the proposed amount of $45,000, and we raised it last year because it had not been raised in over a decade and a half. We need to keep up with inflation on this one, and the need for enforcement of traffic safety simply does not go away. The reason that I'm suggesting transferring this particular amount from the Board of Canvassers, line item 17-495, is because we heard during the presentations that the Board of Canvassers anticipates at least one special election. I think that we have good cause to anticipate at least one special election, although it's not certain. I think that anticipating a second special election is quite speculative. So I don't think that it's truly necessary to budget for a second citywide special election when it's not even entirely certain if we're going to have one, much less two. Further, leaving $10,000 in that line item in the event that there is a local election, say the size of a ward or rep district or the like, that amount would certainly be useful in going towards a local election like that, but I don't see a need for us to budget for a speculative second citywide special election in that manner. So those are my comments. I'll yield to my colleagues. Thank you.
Councilman Lattiser.
Thank you, Mr. President. I concur with Councilman Ricks on this. I actually had that also as my amendment. I agree with his position with the highly unlikely circumstances of a primary election in addition to a special election. However, my allocations were different on the 55,000. I would certainly support your $45,000 move over to the night program. I was going to be dealing with that in a different place, but that's fine. However, I would like to amend your motion to move the remaining $10,000 into asphalt.
I would agree if, what would be the best way to amend my motion?
I would suggest if there's any other discussion, and then we could get into technicals.
Thank you. I would yield.
Councilman Gebhardt.
My only comment on this one would be in prior years I would tend to agree, but I think we should just all be conscious that this particular budget has $4 million in revenue coming from the installation of new speed cameras and red light cameras. So there will be significant and substantial behavior change that comes from that. In speaking with a few members of the traffic division at the police memorial last Sunday, I think it was, you know, they're struggling to keep up with the federally funded grant programs and the other initiatives that they have to. And so that's part of the lack of uptake on the, you know, we didn't consume the budget for this program for last year. So I would just suggest that, in the interest of public safety, the speed cameras and the red light cameras are gonna, do far more enforcement in a relatively automated way than we've ever had before. So, this is peanuts in this budget, as you say. So, I don't really have a problem with it. I just think logically there's going to be other things happening. So that's it.
Person. Councilman Napa.
Just as a response, I appreciate Councilman Gebhardt's concern and, analysis of being appropriate with our allocations, given the other efforts we're making for speed and traffic enforcement across the city. I think it's important also to keep in mind that for the latter third of this fiscal year, there were 4 new members of the council that were still getting used to how we can and what monies we can allocate to enforcement in our neighborhoods. And that was a fact that I just recently learned, admittedly. So it took us a little bit of time to realize that there was funds there that we could expend to benefit our wards, in which I plan personally. I know my constituents would probably share the same sentiment, that they would be more than willing to expel those funds. There is no guidebook to tell us what things we can and cannot do, so we're all learning. And I think that the latter third would have seen some more spending if we had known at the onset that those funds were available. So I think an allocation of $90,000 this year would be appropriate, so we can spend those as freely as we wish to enforce traffic in our particular wards. And if we need to adjust once we see the realization of the speed cameras and the impact, the halo effect that may have on the city, then maybe we adjust that down next year. That's my only thought.
Mayor.
I don't have a little light. No, I'd be supportive of this amendment. We're going to probably most likely have one special election, and unless one of you gentlemen are going to quit, I don't anticipate a second one, but we have a contingency fund should that need arise, or we could find something else. Councilman, it's a very good program, and as the deputy chief said the other night, we just haven't had the members willing to do it, but we have 12 recruits coming. Since I've been mayor, we were budgeted for 175 officers. We've never had more than 152 or 153 at any time. So they're tired from overtime. That's why we haven't, but hopefully, it's a great program. So I'm very supportive of this. And as I said, we can make it work with a special election. Councilman, your amendment, and we'll take all the asphalt money you want to give us, but are you talking about the DPW line item for the crack seal and the potholes? I'm sorry? When you said asphalt, there are 2 different places. There's paving, which $10,000 wouldn't make a huge difference. But in the DPW budget, we have a asphalt and paving line item, but that's for crack seal, pothole repair, and that.
Good point, Mayor. I was sending it to asphalt 63-290.
That's the one. Thank you. We could always use more on that.
So, Council Solicitor.
So Councilman Ricks has made an amendment to move $55,000 out of a primary election account and move $45,000 of that into the police night program. And Councilman Lattiser has made a request to allocate that $10,000 difference to the Public Works Highway Asphalt account. So first question, Mr. President, would be, is there any objection to amending, or to updating the amendment accordingly?
Any objection? Seeing none, so ordered.
So the amendment before all of you now in complete form is as read. We're eliminating $55,000 from the primary election expense and redistributing those funds, $45,000 to the night program and $10,000 to Public Works Highway Asphalt.
Any further questions or comments on that? Seeing none, clerk will call the roll. Yes.
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 Mr. President.
Councilman Lattiser.
Thank you, Mr. President. If I could respectfully make a suggestion, the
council solicitor has asked and I believe received proposed amendments from each of the members of the city council in the interest of efficiency. Perhaps it might be appropriate for him to read those items out, those amendments, and if there are any remaining amendments to be made that have developed today, each respective council person could put them in the record at that point.
All right, Councilman Lattiser, do you want to have the solicitor go with the ones you sent in so we can handle those first? Those at least we know about.
We don't know if just because someone may have pre-filed the concept with me, not shared with any of you, it's unclear whether or not someone would follow through based on there being overlap.
I
So
see.
at this time, are you recognizing Councilman Lattiser for his? Okay. With some of the items you shared with me, I would suggest, would you like to start with the other asphalt matters first?
Sure.
Would you like me to read
Sure.
the electricity one?
Go ahead.
Okay. Councilman Lattiser moves an amendment to reduce an expenditure from Department 70-224 Public Works Field Maintenance Electricity.
Excuse me, I did make a clerical error on that. 70-224 is actually, it's natural gas and propane.
I believe there's 3 sub-accounts in that one.
There's two items. 7224 is listed twice. It's listed for propane gas and natural gas. 7224 is propane 10,000. 7224 is natural gas is 20,000. That's where the total comes from on those 2 items.
As a point of order, I believe the administration had already proposed amending the propane.
Yes, so Councilman, there are 3 line items associated with 70-224, and they're on page 40. The administration has already addressed an amendment with propane and natural gas. We can certainly readjust those, but the remaining one that you were suggesting, I believe, was dealing with electricity. Is that accurate?
Okay, we'll keep it the way it was. 7224, cut 30,000.
Thank you. Councilman Lattiser moves an amendment to 70-224 Public Works Field Maintenance Electricity. The original proposed amount is $85,000. The amendment is to reduce it by $30,000, resulting in $55,000, and to move that new $30,000 into 63-290 Public Works Highway Asphalt. That was just amended to, the new number in that account is $60,000, so this would make the new account $90,000. And that is the extent to the amendment.
So is there a second on the proposed amendment? Seconded by Councilman Ricks. So Councilman Lattiser?
Yes. So as we heard Monday night, some of these adjustments and requests for electricity are just completely mind-boggling to me. I think that a lot of these numbers are much higher than what they're actually going to be. And the asphalt line item is significantly lower than it has been in years. The change in the line item from propane gas, natural gas, where I had originally intended to make that move, was because, as you can see, going back to 2023 and even beyond that, there had never been that line item at all. So my initial intent was to reduce propane, gas, and natural gas by the total 30. I think in revisiting this, what would make sense is to change my motion from the 30 out of the electricity, leave the electricity at 85 and take the 20,000 out of the, I'm sorry, the 10,000 out of the propane and move that over to the asphalt line item.
Councilman?
Sir.
In the administration's amendment, that $10,000 was reduced by $7,500, so there was only $2,500 remaining in that account.
Got it. I'll withdraw that line item altogether.
So are you withdrawing the amendment or just the suggestion you made while talking about it?
No, I'll withdraw the change of 30,000, and I'm going to reduce that down to 20,000 and move it to asphalt.
Any objection to the adjustment of the amendment as so stated by Councilman Lattiser? Seeing none, so done.
So just to reiterate for everyone, we are still on 70,224 Public Works Field Maintenance Electricity, which began with $85,000. The amendment would now reduce it by $20,000, and it would be put into the Public Works Highway asphalt account.
So are there any further questions? Councilman Napa.
Just to comment on that, I support this amendment proposed by Councilman Lattiser. Just wanted to clarify, the propane gas struck me as well. The administration offered some clarity on that. Former Council President McAllister had allocated some of his board money to purchase propane-fueled gas heaters that are going to go over to the Apponaug rink. And that's why the propane appears here where it has never before. And the administration was looking to allocate the $2,500 that Councilman Lattiser has now suggested we leave in that propane line item. Just so we support the efforts of our prior council president, I think that's important to leave in place, and just wanted to put some clarity on that new line item that we have not seen in the past.
Councilman Ricks.
Thank you. I would just briefly add that with items such as this, if electricity comes in high next fiscal year, obviously we can't perfectly predict the cost of energy. It's not as if the lights are going to go out. The administration does have the power to shift money around as needed and as necessary. I think that a shift such as this is appropriate for this city council to make. It appears that Councilman Lattiser, doing his due diligence, it seems that that particular line item is a little bit heavy, and I think that Councilman Lattiser is correct that that line item can spare that $20,000. If it turns out that electricity comes in high, the administration certainly has the power to shift that money back or otherwise continue spending to make sure that the lights stay on. And I would say that it is appropriate for the transfer to the asphalt budget as well to show that the city council is prioritizing that. And while we do not have the authority to necessarily direct the administration to necessarily spend that money in that particular way, us voting on this amendment is certainly a show of support for additional funding towards that important priority that certainly every single one of us can think of streets that would benefit from additional paving. Thank you.
You want me to keep going?
No, it doesn't seem like anyone's opposed to it, so you don't need to rally further. Mayor?
No, not at all. We could always use a little bit more, this is for crack seal, potholes and all that line item. We've used about 31,000 this year, and it's pretty much over for the season. The fiscal year ends early. But as Councilman Ricks pointed out, if you take it from electricity, if the need arises, we can transfer it within the department. The need for crack seal and potholes, we've paved a lot of roads. We have a lot more coming this year. It's going to go down a little bit more every year.
Mr. Mayor, I'm sorry, I apologize. This asphalt change that I'm making, in addition to some others, are all going to the asphalt line item 63,290.
Yes, under highway. That's crack seal and potholes. Asphalt's about $80 a ton. It's not terribly expensive. Crack sealing is a little more expensive. But, we're adequately funded for this year, but we may get a little more done this summer. It depends. We had a pretty cold winter, so there's probably some damage out there. And as Councilman Ricks pointed out, should the need arise, we have extra, we can move it back to electricity. So you're not really any danger of running out of anything.
Councilman Ricks, you're on. Do you have something?
Thank you, Mayor.
Your light's on, that's why.
Pardon me.
All right. Any further question or comment on this? If not, clerk will call the roll. Yes.
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 Yes. Yes.
Yes.
All right. Yep.
The next Lattiser amendment is regarding Department 17101, Board of Canvassers salaries. The proposed amount is $219,006. The amendment is to reduce it by $10,000 and to put that money into the same account of 63,290, Public Works Highway Asphalt.
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Napa for discussion. Councilman Lattiser?
Well, it's my belief that that salary line item has been inflated, and I want to reduce that and move that money over to asphalt 63,290.
This isn't the one set by the committee, is it?
By the what, please?
Is this the one that's set by the committee? So, yeah?
I'm simply reducing the
No,
salary item.
Yeah, no, I know. Sure. Mayor?
Yes, the salary is set by the Board of Canvassers. It's in accordance with state law. We have no choice but to give that raise. And if you take the salary away, I'd have to find the money somewhere other way.
So this one's kind of odd.
MIS director, the clerk needs some batteries. And I need a little light.
This isn't odd because of Councilman Lattiser. This is odd because there's a state law on this. And let me just pull it up so I don't mislead anyone here.
The Board of Canvass is the governing body of that department.
Yeah, so the state law states that the board, local duties, local canvassing, including the general appointment, employment, and the person's limit, and funds available to pursuant law. And the compensation is subject to council approval only in Cranston, Socket, and Coventry. So, according to the statute, we're not really supposed to weigh into this. However, this is, I don't want to word this wrong because it's not fair. It's subject to funds available. So this arguably is simply making the funds not available. Are we seeking to the proposed amendment? My only concern is it obviously goes against the spirit of the law. And I know Councilman Ricks, Councilman Napa will understand, you can actually still lose lawsuits when you violate the spirit of the law, even if you don't violate the letter of the law. So I don't really want to wade into this personally, obviously, but council's free to vote however they please. I don't really want to purposely violate the spirit of the law on this one, even though I understand Councilman Latish's point. And I think it's actually kind of foolish that you have to opt in and get General Assembly approval for your city or town council to have a approval process on this whole situation. It's bizarre from my perspective. And I know Councilman Lattiser plans on changing that, and I fully support him on that one. That's for getting that legislation changed, but at least for tonight, again, I just don't support an amendment that would go against the spirit of the statute. But again, I don't really blame you for at least attempting to, because it is odd that we don't have approval power here.
Thank you for those comments, Mr. President. I certainly don't want to go against the spirit of the law, but we certainly have the right to address a salary line item. With that said, part of the reason for my doing this is I think that this type of increase in how it occurred, I think it's demoralizing to many of our other employees. And I don't think that is the way things should be done. So with that said, obviously I've made my point. I will be addressing this evening through a resolution to also give the city of Warwick control on this, because the way this law is now, this is just another ridiculous law, because essentially what could happen is the board could appropriate any pay raise they wanted to do for someone in that particular department. They could put in a $20,000, $30,000, $40,000 pay raise, and there's nothing we can do about it. That's absurd, and it needs to change. And my point's made. I will withdraw that request, and we'll deal with it in the docket memo this evening. And I would invite any of my colleagues that wish to co-sponsor to please sign on.
And I stand by what I said, fully support that effort. Just because, and not because this administration's abusing it, because they're not, but the opportunity for abuse is obviously present. And so while we don't have to worry about it from Mayor Picozzi, who knows what happens down the line. So there's just no reason to have that left hanging. Solicitor?
Without objection, the councilman's amendment's withdrawn.
So any objection to that withdrawal of that amendment? Seeing none, so withdrawn.
The next Lattiser amendment is moving from Department 3340, Police Service Contracts, original amount $350,000. The request is to reduce this by $25,000 and to put that $25,000 into Public Works Highway Asphalt account 63290.
So is there a second on that motion? Motion made from Councilman Lattiser, seconded by Councilman Ricks. Councilman Lattiser.
So that line item, 3340 service contracts, moving it to the request that it is now, that's going to be a $38,000 increase from last year. It's going to be $60,000 more than it's projected to use. It's $125,000 more than it was in fiscal year 2024, and $120,000 more than it was in fiscal 2023. I think that is an unnecessary increase in that line item. I have not received any supportive information to support that type of an increase, which is the reason I'm requesting the amendment to be item 30-340 service contracts reduced by 25,000 and move it into the asphalt line item 63,290.
Anyone have any questions or comments on this proposed amendment? Any issue one way or another from the administration?
I just spoke to Colonel Connor, and he's against it. He said it's very crucial to have those funds.
Councilman Napa?
So I can concur with the mayor on that. There was some conversation that I had with the police department on these service contracts. And these are ongoing service and maintenance contracts for new services that we approved in the finance committee for their purchases for upgrades in hardware and infrastructure. So it would be, I think, imprudent to not allow them the appropriate funds to take out the service and preventative maintenance contracts on the items that we have approved them for purchase, or the services and infrastructure that we've given to the police department that we've authorized them to spend on. So I think the preventative maintenance contracts are vital. Not that I have any objection to keeping costs under control, but I think that particular item would be kind of biting our nose to spite our face.
Mr. Chairman, given the comments from the mayor and Councilman Napper, I can certainly respect that, and I'll withdraw that motion.
Any objection to withdrawal of that motion? No. All right, seeing none, so withdrawn. Just pretend you're listening to hold music.
Thank you, Mr. President. The next Lattiser amendment just needed to be updated because it had some impact on the administration's amendment. Previously, funds were moved from fire miscellaneous capital expenditures into the school department appropriation. Councilman Lattiser would prefer that these funds be placed in a finance contingency account. So the amendment that Councilman Lattiser is preparing is to reduce that, the increase that was previously made, the $1,785,140, to reduce account 89000 by that amount, and to put that money into 18400 finance contingency.
So is there a second regarding Councilman Lattiser's motion? Seconded by Councilman Napa. So Councilman Lattiser?
Mr. President, the reason that I'm requesting to make this move, it's not with the intent of denying those resources to the school department, but it is suggesting that that action be tabled. And there's quite a few reasons for it. One is, as we all know, at the request of the mayor and the approval of the city council and the general assembly, a budget review commission was formed. They are still in the process of doing the work, doing the researching, digging into expenses, revenues, etc. I think to move roughly $1.8 million into the coffers of the school department prior to receiving recommendations and direction from the Budget Commission is not appropriate. That's the whole reason why this Budget Commission was put into place. I think in doing this, A, it's jumping the gun, but yesterday I attended the Budget Commission meeting, and what was dispersed to us was the school department could have as much as a $500,000 surplus, if you will, in the FICA account. You remember at Monday's meeting, I had asked questions about what is the percentage of FICA. And I wanted that number so that hopefully I would have had the time to back into everything and see if those numbers were accurate. But apparently the Budget Commission was already on that. In addition to that, the chair had also stated that there could be up to a $2 million return from healthcare. If those things come to be, they would have more monies than what they were originally asking for. Right now, there's about $1.5 million, $1.6 million delta, I think, between the schools and us. The concern is the more monies that are put over to the school department, the more that's been spent. You'll remember last year, we appropriated $1 million more than what their budget request was. And they came back with subjective somewhere between $7 and $9 million deficit. They've had 3 years in a row with a budget that wasn't balanced. Also yesterday, it was disclosed that there has been a software program that was purchased, somewheres upwards of, or a contract entered into to purchase somewheres upwards of a $700,000 software program. The school department had said that they already paid $202,888, but are not using the program. Program hasn't been implemented. The chair asked, if you don't do this program and you give it back, will you be receiving your $448,000 or whatever the number was back? And they weren't sure. I would say it's highly unlikely. The point is, the out of control spending without accountability, it just becomes more and more prevalent every time we dig in with things. So I'm not against moving the $1,785,000 to the school department. I'm just against moving it there now. To me, it makes fiscal sense to have it in the contingency line item, and if and when the Budget Commission comes back and says, this is what we have determined, this is what they need to go forward, then we release the money. If we move $1,785,000 over to the school department now, and the commission comes back with what is a potential up to $2.5 million, that's about $1 million more, $900,000 more than what the separation is between the $1.8 million, use a round number, and what their final ask is. So to me, that would make sense and be fiscally responsible, that the money's there if and when the Budget Commission makes that recommendation. And that's my reasoning for making that amendment. Thank you.
All right, so regarding the proposed amount from the mayor, we're actually at a state now where we haven't been in a while where everyone's actually on board, I say everyone, generally speaking, with the route we're going with the school department and with the city's cooperation with them, with their rapidly burgeoning finance team they have over there, which everyone seems to be very excited about. There are definitely some variables that are up in the air. Unfortunately, they go in both directions when it comes to the state of the budget in that regard. However, it should be noted that there will be still nearly 2 million, if not more, gap between the ask and the amount being allocated as it stands now, even if these funds aren't moved. My hope is that we go forward with the mayor's request and meanwhile having a supplemental appropriation ready to go for the school department. That way, when the budget commission comes down with whatever their findings are, if they identify a gap, we're ready, willing, and able to fill it. Because it's my understanding that that expression of intent and willingness has already been made. And then if it comes down to the fact that no, there is no gap, then great, we did well. And I find it highly unlikely, if not improbable, that unless we allocate even more money than proposed by the mayor, that there will be no gap whatsoever or an overage. The facts just don't suggest that being accurate. We've heard from the school department ad nauseum in this regard. They've gone above and beyond to present information. They've arguably gone too lean in some regards to make this work. And there's some efficiencies that we still want them to do that would cost more money. And Councilman Muno wisely pointed out that they should get another position in their finance department to help round out everything nicely. That obviously costs money. We want them to be on Munis. That obviously costs money. So we want to be in a good shape going forward so that we don't keep coming back here and having the same problem. It looks like we're almost have everything lined up to do that, but I think now's the least appropriate time to kind of stack the deck against them, even unintentionally. Because Councilman Lattiser's point is not unfounded as far as putting it in a contingency account. It's not an unreasonable idea under the circumstances. However, I just don't think it is the best approach, given how far we've come relationship-wise. We say we trust the school department's efforts, and we say we trust the new direction, the superintendent's efforts since becoming superintendent, and their incoming finance department. I say we demonstrate that we do in fact trust rather than just saying we do. And it's not like we'll be stuck in a situation where any consequences thereafter are irredeemable. They'll be back next year for the budget. And if it turns out there are issues that come between now and then, we know how to handle the situation. But given everything we've seen here has been unprecedented over these past few months, I'm fairly confident in them. Councilman Napa?
Just as a point of order, if the city solicitor, could you summarize for the council what the existing gap is between the school department's ask and where the budget allocation stands after the mayor's proposed amendment, just so we can quantify what it is we're speaking to?
The proposal currently before you, currently in 89,000 as we're deliberating, the current number in that account is $1,228,049. The request from the school department in their budget submission was $198,100,000. $162,060. Need to do quick math, but that's the. That difference is $1,934,011.
Councilman Ricks.
Thank you. I would completely agree with you, Council President, on your assessment. I would agree that the mayor's additional proposed amendment to increase the school department budget by that amount is appropriate at this time. I would also just briefly add that I think it's also very much a good faith demonstration in public that the city council is also here working with the school committee. It's not a one-sided relationship. Each side is giving trust to the other side here. And certainly there's still quite a gap between what the school committee had requested and what the city council would be allocating here. There's also additional safeguards more than ever before. There's a better relationship. I'll leave my comments at that. Thank you.
Any further comments or questions regarding the proposed amendment, Councilman Lattiser? Councilman Gephardt?
I'll just say that I think you said it all, Council President. So I'll echo what you had to say. Thank you.
Any further comments or questions regarding the proposed amendment from Councilman Lattiser? Seeing none, clerk will call the roll.
Mr. Sinapi?
No.
Mr. DeLuise?
No.
Mr. Foley?
No.
Mr. Gephardt?
No.
Mr. Kirby?
No.
Mr. Lattiser?
Yes.
Mr. Muto?
No.
Mr. Napa?
No.
Mr. Ricks?
No.
And yes, I know amendment fails.
So is that all the proposed amendments that were submitted to us?
That concludes pre-filed amendments.
All right, are there any further amendments that a council member wishes to propose? All right, so I just want to make sure some things are known. Credit where credit's due, just so people are aware. Councilman Lattiser alone found nearly roughly $2 million worth of various clerical issues in the budget. That's not a dig on the administration because the budget's freaking massive, so it's very difficult to keep track of it all. It's more to make sure Councilman Lattiser's efforts are acknowledged in this regard because he did a great job. And that's in part why the school department was able to get more funds. All right, so no further amendments, no further comments one way or another. So I guess clerk will call the roll, or we have more matters? Councilman Ricks?
Pardon me, I'll try to keep this one brief. I know, famous last words. So I would like to try to briefly state that I think that Mr. Cushman and some other members of the public, both in the chamber and otherwise, have made some very good points about this coming budget. A 3.91% tax increase certainly is not to be taken lightly. I know that no person here, no member of this council takes this lightly whatsoever, but I know that we've all done our best to review this budget. I would like to commend Councilman Lattiser for all of his efforts, truly going above and beyond here with all of his experience in finance as finance chair for several terms. The reason for these tax increases becoming necessary is a culmination of several different factors, long-term, short-term. I'm concerned that future budgets in the next several years As bad as things looked heading into this budget season, I'm not seeing future years look much better from the information that we currently have. So it's all the more important for us to, throughout the whole year, as well as at these budget hearings, review everything very carefully, make very careful decisions about what is and isn't necessary so that we can try to avoid tax increases at this type of rate. And yet, we also have an obligation to make sure that high-quality city services are being provided, especially when we are asking taxpayers to pay so much. Look forward to working with the rest of the City Council, Mayor, and the administration to try to get through this difficult time. Thank you.
Councilman Lattiser.
Thank you, Mr. President. I do have one other item that I'd want to put forth, but I would need to, I guess, speak with the finance director for a question. Hello, Director. Earlier today, and I cannot find the response, but I had asked a question regarding what our fund balance was in our healthcare reserve account and where that was going to be at the end of this fiscal year. And I cannot find that email, so I want to ask that again.
$3.5 million.
It's 3.5 million. The reason that I'm asking this is that's after the drawdown of the 1.25 in the mayor's budget.
It'll be 2,259,687 at the end of 26.
I'm sorry, could you repeat that?
2,259,697 at the end of 26.
And that is reflective of the 1.25 million that the mayor has drawn down from there to put into this budget.
Yes.
And in doing so, we are still left with an additional healthcare total due of it's 1,479,787. So roughly $1.5 million that will have to be picked up by the taxpayers. And that's also part of this 3.9% potential tax increase. Is that correct?
I'm confused. Our healthcare cost is going up by 8.65%, if that's what you're asking.
Yeah, I believe the increase is 2,729,787, right? It's not?
That's the balance at the end of fiscal year 26 if we use the 1.250 in 26. That will leave a reserve to be possibly used in 27 still.
So my line of thinking on this is I believe it was last year, it was indicated that it potentially draw 5 million out of the healthcare reserves to fund OPEB. The reasoning for my question now is that my consideration would be to take that $1,479,787 that is still left to be paid after the mayor puts in the $1.25 million, to draw that out of the rainy day account and essentially give that a zero cost to the taxpayers. Get the taxpayers a bit of a break here, as opposed to letting this $2.259 million sit in the reserve account.
If you use the entirety of that account, we'll be left with nothing, and next year your healthcare cost will look like it's soared. The opinion has been to use that reserve slow and steady to help ease the cost to the city of the healthcare that goes up annually.
So essentially, this is, it's a stop loss in place in case healthcare costs go crazy next year.
Healthcare always goes up, so the attitude has been to use this kind of in a slow and steady way instead of putting a huge hole in the budget.
Okay, that is definitely something that I will plug into my calendar for next year's budget if there's any discussion about taking $5 million out of that healthcare reserve and dumping it into OPEB. I'm not saying from you, Director, I'm saying in a general comment. Thank you.
Councilman Ricks, are you on, or is that just from before? All right, that answers that question. Councilman Foley? Councilman Foley, move the question. Yeah.
Director, we've reached the end of amendments. My math is all things were neutral, so is it accurate to portray that there's no changes necessary to the underlying resolution relative to the tax rates? Just want confirmation that we're good to proceed on the rates that are set in the resolution. All amendments that were proposed were net zero, so there was no additional transfers to expenditures.
You're correct, Mr. Walsh.
Thank you. Council President, someone can move, it would be in order to move the PCR 66 favorable as amended.
Anyone move favorable action as amended regarding PCR 66-25? So moved by Councilman Gephardt, seconded by Councilman Muto. Any further question or comment? Sure, Councilman Lattiser.
Thank you, Mr. President. I fully realize that the administration has worked hard in trying to do the best that they can with regard to this budget. I certainly know all of my colleagues on the city council have done their best to play out the hand that we've been delivered. I am not going to be able to support this budget. And part of it is because of the hand that we've been delivered. And I understand and realize that our hands are tied on a lot of these contractual requirements that are driving the cost up wildly to the taxpayers. I don't have any say on those contracts, but I do have the opportunity to express my feelings with how we end up. And some of you have served with me for a long time. Some are in your first term with me. I've been saying it for years that the spending is out of control. And it's not just a reflection on this administration. It's on the past two previous administrations as well. Spending is out of control. In 2018 or so, as some of you will remember, I tried to pass a resolution that would have saved the taxpayers $5 million a year back then by increasing co-pays, by increasing stop-loss coverage, by eliminating lifetime health care, free lifetime health care for new hires, in implementing a modest copay on retirees with a pension of over $35,000. And that failed. And it failed again 2 years ago. These two schools, you know where I've been on it. I've been on it since day one, and that is in opposition. I oppose two schools. One school palatable, and I would have supported. I still do not believe, especially with the most recent numbers of the population, that two high schools are necessary. I've just recently received information where the population in those two high schools is barely 50%. I continue to oppose that. I said you couldn't bill them for $350. Now we're at $4. The bonds have begun to increase recently, which could absolutely have a very negative impact in the cost. The senior citizens continue to bear the lion's share of the pain with this. We have our residents who live day to day and paycheck to paycheck that are incurring the bulk of the pain. We have our veterans who also have their own struggles. Years ago, some of you will remember when our actuaries came before us and they were asked the question, when do we reach the point of no return? And I know some of you have heard the answer, but I'm going to say it again. The answer was you've already reached it, but yet there's nothing being done to bail this ship out. And for those reasons, I'm not going to be supporting this budget. There needs to certainly be an effort in these contract negotiations to turn the tide. Everybody wants to seem to, dismiss the fact that, oh, we've been hearing this for years. Well, here we are. You just heard where we are financially. That's all I have to say on this matter. Thank you.
By the way, I'd be remiss if I didn't mention that the original budget omitted the $10,000 for each ward, but once alerted to that fact, the administration was kind enough to put it back in. So much obliged and appreciate it. Councilman Foy, I saw you lit up. Did you turn it off? Are you good? All right. So it's been moved and seconded, so clerk will call the roll.
Mr. Sinapi?
Yes.
Mr. DeLuise?
Yes.
Mr. Foley?
Yes.
Mr. Gephardt?
Yes.
Mr. Kirby? Mr. Lattiser?
No.
Mr. Muto?
Yes.
Mr. Napa?
Yes.
Mr. Ricks?
Yes.
8 yes, 1 no, as amended. That's 2 amendments. Are we amending?
No, that's as amended.
Okay. Let's make sure I was right.
Yep, PCR 6625 stands passed. Anything for unanimous consent? Seeing none, we have a motion to go to the docket session. Councilman Foley? Any second? Second by Councilman Lattiser. Any objection? Seeing none, to the docket session we go. Councilman Foley? Councilman Ricks?
Pass.
Councilman Napa?
Pass.
Councilman DeLuise?
Pass.
Councilman Lattiser?
Yes, Mr. President, I would have one, and I would point out that the time is now 6:47. Councilman Foley?
547.
I'm sorry, 5:47. 5:47 is the time. So I have a resolution requesting the General Assembly to amend Rhode Island General Law 17-8-5 to include the City of Warwick in the list of municipal councils authorized to approve the employment and compensation of local canvassing authorities. At this time, Council President Sinapi has signed on as a co-sponsor, Councilman Muto, Councilman Kirby, and I believe
Councilman Foley, Councilman Ricks,
it
Councilman
looks as
Napa.
though unanimous amongst all. Thank you. Councilman Gebhardt, did you sign? He did not, sorry. I beg for forgiveness.
Councilman Muto, do you have anything for the docket session? Councilman Kirby, anything for the docket session? Councilman Gebhardt, anything for the docket session? All right, and then I have one supplemental.
Mr. President, excuse me, Councilman Foley, Councilman Napper, and Councilman Rich did sign on as
Yes.
co-sponsors. Okay.
And then I have one supplemental appropriation for a school department. So that goes to finance. And if I didn't mention it, Councilman Lattice just goes to intergovernmental. And that's everything. So we stand adjourned. Oh, yeah, I should have noted that too. By the way, the administration, we're adjourned. I can still talk. Make me. The administration was great on answering questions. We barraged them. Same with the school department. So take note.